This is Mr. Olympia, Brandon Curry, and you're watching Think Big Bodybuilding Media.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 53 of It's Just Bodybuilding. Dusty HANSHAW, myself, Big Ron Partlow, coming at you with four-time Mr. Olympia, Jay CUTLER, on It's Just Bodybuilding. So here we are, bring you right in at the top of the show with Dusty and I, Jay CUTLER, four-time Mr. Olympia, the best businessman in bodybuilding. How you doing, man?
You know what's so funny, guys, is I was breezing through YouTube about a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and I saw this with my image in the background, and I said, how come I haven't been on his podcast yet? And I remember you hit me out. You wanted me to be your first guest on this thing.
Yeah. And you said, well, we put up a post saying we were going to do a podcast, and you were the first guy to comment. You went, when am I on, bro?
Yeah.
and then it took about a year to get you, but we got you.
And I appreciate what you guys are doing. And, I wanted the opportunity to come on here and kind of chat with you guys a little bit since we have a lot of history, between us. Yeah,
Dusty and I have brought you up. Obviously, you're on the wall here behind me. We brought you up a lot on the show, and one of the things that is sort of universally thought about you is just the way you've been so consistent with engaging in the fans from the very beginning of your career, and just Dusty and I've talked about your first to show up, last to leave mentality for the expos and the fan events, and when you look back on that, I don't know, what do you think? Where did you get that from?
Man, I love it. I tell people to this day, like, I just went to FitCon this past weekend. I don't know if you guys saw the images or whatever, but, first expo of the year. I've missed it. I definitely have a different outlook because of the whole situation we've been through with the pandemic and everything. But at the same time, like, it's been, I was born to, just really, that's what I love the most is I can tell you competing wasn't always, it may appear to be like my love, right? My passion, but the fans, man, have been, it's just without the fans, I couldn't have had such a successful career. And I just I appreciate them so much. So I hate leaving the expos, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, do you think what percentage of bodybuilders do you think don't quite get it? They don't get it.
I hate the pinpoint. Most don't get it.
He's think, like 99.
I mean, but I'll be real with you guys. And like a bodybuilder's job is to train, right? We love training. I think that's my first love. So I'm not going to tell you, I'd rather go to expos than go to the gym and work out. Like, I love training. I still do it to this day. Probably more now than when I was competing at the Mr. Olympia, because I actually have fun doing it. And I'll explain that later as we speak a little bit. But I think a lot of bodybuilders, like, they just get so honed in on, okay, I'm going to eat, sleep, and train, and I'm going to try to be the best bodybuilder in the world. And there's nothing wrong with that. But there's a few of us that go beyond, just, okay, we use weight training as an outlet. And some people are people persons, other people are introverts. I was an introvert that turned into more of a people person. Although when the expo's over, I go in my room and I kind of sit in silence and I kind of just zone out. And I'd rather not go to an after party or be around a lot of people at like a pub or anything like that, because I mean, I've been speaking to people all day and I'm wound up. But at the same time, like, I think the outlet for me after expos is usually going to work out, believe it or not, even if 6 or 8 hours on my feet. I just love it, man. And bodybuilding was one of those things when I started at, 18, but I had a love for it at 12. I said, if I ever become famous in this realm, like, I'm going to give everything I can to, showcase like the thought process that has gone through to make me who I was. And I never expected the career I ever had. That's the amazing part. If you would have told me at 18 when I started this journey that I would have achieved and been as recognized as I would have said, no way, not possible.
I have a story that I've told a lot of people. It's from 2001. And it's back. Me and Dusty have joked about your old cuts260 at AOL.com email.
Cuts 280. Cuts 280.
Cuts 280 at AOL.com.
Actually, you know what? I think it was 260, and then I went up to 280, so I had to change it to 280.
He had to change his email because he got bigger.
And because Dave was huge 285. And you were cuts 260. And I just remember everyone from back in the day that was on like the inner circle that had Jay Cutler's email address, they all get that joke. But I remember being just like a nobody kid who was doing like my second big show. And I emailed you like a carb question. And you were like 3 weeks out from the Olympia. And I don't know why I emailed you something off the board. I thought, fuck, I'll see if Jay will answer me back. And you answered me back within like 30 minutes with like this like kind of detailed thing. Like you put some thought into it. And looking back now, like you were way ahead of the curve of fan engagement. I have not heard a story of that, like it's similar to that from that era from anybody else. Mm-hmm. And, you know, nowadays, obviously engagement is everything, but you were doing it 20 years ago. And did you foresee it being that important, or did you feel some sort of duty to respond to these kids? Did you feel like what was driving you to take that time, being so tired, 3 weeks out, all that stuff? That was a big year too. That was 01.
I had great influence. You know, I have to give a lot of credit to Chris Aceto, who you guys both know well. Mm-hmm. He kind of took me under the wing early, right? We met when I was about 18 and a half. So 6 months into training is when I actually got to meet Chris Aceto. And it's a long story, but he came through, took a look at me, wrote me out a little diet, and I stuck it on my refrigerator. And, you know, he came back couple months later and said, man, this kid's going to be something. Right. So he kind of taught me about the mail order, and I would handwrite letters because at that point we were putting our PO boxes in the magazines, and I would handwrite letters to the fans because I wasn't a fast typer. I never was that was typewriters. This is prior to internet. So, you know, I remember using the computers in 1998 is when I started the AOL, you know, the dial-up email. Right. And then, you know, I just started corresponding with people all around the world. And I mean, you were a Canadian, and I remember, you know, you used to buy from the website, like you used to get shirts and stuff. And I remember you struggled to get that pro card, like more than anyone ever. Right.
Well, one of the guys. Yeah. There's a lot of struggle on this side of the broadcast, Jay.
So, I mean, I just remember like you were so close every year. But anyway, you know, I always, like I told you, man, I was never above anyone because I learned from guys like both you guys. I watched your articles, I watched videos, and like it didn't matter what level I was on. I always looked into how people function and hey, if I have a body part that I'm trying to improve, let me try this. And, you know, you guys, I mean, you're both big guys, right? So we had something in common where, you know, I never looked at the guys, to be honest, like a Lee Labrada routine as much, and like, you know, the smaller statue guys, right? Mm-hmm. I never followed like a Dexter Jackson workout program, I'll be honest, as I'm a fan of his, but I always looked at the Coleman or the Dorian Yateses and, you know, people like yourself, even, you know, on the amateur level. So it was something that I looked upon, and I appreciated anyone that reached out to me because I knew what it was like being on the other side at one point, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to the kind of the early days of your career, you know, from the time you started training, I mean, you were with your ex-wife. You were with her for that whole long process. What was the conversation like in the early years? Like, because you said how back then you functioned as a team and she was working to support, you were full-time bodybuilder, all that stuff going on. How was the goal talked about? Like, you know what I mean? It's such an interesting development to the level you got to, given that you set out as a high school kid to do that.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because the goals weren't like, hey, I'm going to be the best bodybuilder. It was like from like show to show, right? So it went from, okay, I'm going to compete at the local level, right? And then I want to qualify for team nationals, and I won that. And then it was like, okay, go into the men's open. Let's choose a show in California. I chose one show, and then I got my pro card at nationals, right? So it was like, okay, who am I up against? And what's my expectations? And truthfully, the amateur was a quick run for me. I was a very competitive amateur, and I was hyped to be the next guy, right? And then once I got to the pros, it was kind of more of a, okay, we have to take a step back and kind of plan and choose what shows they're going to be. But it was never the fact, and I can honestly tell you guys, like, I never planned on being the best bodybuilder until I stood next to Ronnie in 01, and it was like 1-2 decision. And then I said, wow, I can actually win this thing. That was the first time. And, Chris will talk about my mindset going in. And yes, I said I was going to win, but I didn't envision myself winning until I actually got that opportunity to stand next to the best in the world. And then I could size myself up and say, wow, the crowd is actually working in my favor somewhat. This is an opportunity for me to kind of run with it. And that's when I never looked back after 01, pretty much. I knew I would be the best bodybuilder in the world at some point. Did take a little longer than I would have liked it to taken, but and then from there I became more of an open, business guy. And you guys can watch the videos back in the day. I was very focused. I loved the training aspect. I hated the competing part. I loved going against Coleman. When I won the Olympia, it was more that I beat Ronnie Coleman rather than win the Olympia. That was honestly what I got out of that. And then I realized, oh wow, I'm Mr. Olympia too. And that made a huge difference in my career, which was pretty amazing at that point because I had been second best in the world for so long.
A bold and battle-ready focus formula that takes no prisoners and shows no mercy.
I wanted to ask you about working with Chris. He often would refer to 2003 and call it the year of Jay. And he said that a lot. Like that was like one of his like years where he said nothing could go wrong, And what was happening in your world at 2003? You were just winning every single show. And then eventually you ran into Ronnie and it just happened to be his great year. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think the run really started. I can tell you guys, and this will kind of bring you back, I'm sure, at points of your career, but like 01, from 01 forward, it just really started to click, right? You kind of got the confidence, which started at the Olympia. And then I pretty much stayed on a diet, and I won the Arnold in 02, right? And then I moved to Vegas, and I sat out the 02 Olympia. And then I said, I'm going to get my mind set on 03. And that's when I started with, Ironman, Arnold, San Francisco Pro, and then, of course, prepared for the Olympia and then went against, the best Ronnie Coleman ever. And that was the point where it was like, okay, I didn't have to do a lot of cardio. I was training consistently. I was doing the volume. I didn't have to change anything. Like there was no second guesses. I was getting in shape. The body was just at that point, right, where I was 30. I was around 30 then. So I think, zero pain, zero injuries, zero stress. Like financially, I was supporting myself well. I was traveling, but I had a really good balance. And I think that's really what really was like, made it so much easier, so it was like, when you don't have to do a ton of cardio and get in shape and you can just focus on, I was training twice a day at that point. And I look back then and I still think training twice a day always was more beneficial for me. So I would do a larger body part in the morning. I'd go back in the afternoon and I would do, a smaller body part. But I would get up at 6 every morning. I would train by 7:30. I would train my second session at 2 and I was in bed by 9. So it was a very structured lifestyle. And that's one thing, being a contracted athlete, I was able to really just like hone in and treat it like a real job, right? And I was still doing the business. I was running the mail orders. Guest appearances were done. I would cut those prior to 12 weeks, 16 weeks out from the shows, and we just had a solid run that year. It was just everything was just full go.
One of your most famous quotes that everyone just loves, is that I lived in a fucking box to be the best. And did you just sort of look around one day and realize that you had built this box for yourself? Or do you remember actually, going inside it and closing the door at one point, so to speak, metaphorically, I guess?
It was the mindset, Ron. It was the honing out of any kind of distraction. So when I say a box, I had my gyms I trained at, I had my meal times, and I had a small community, right? So there was nothing really that changed day to day for me. Like I told you, like I can sit here and I'm recalling 2003 and I can tell you exactly the times I trained. I can tell you the exact workout schedule. It was 3 on 1 off, 2 on 1 off schedule. I had it down to a science. And I did the same workouts every single week. I did the same movements in the same exact order, same repetitions, same weights, and great results. And I don't believe in changing anything. If you have things just in sequence and you see progression, like it's very, very easy to do. So when you live a very simplistic lifestyle, and you guys can both relate to that, right? When you train for a show, there's no other world, right? Think about that structured around an off season too. Like I wasn't going out and doing activities. We didn't really go to dinners. If anything going out, what we would be doing is going to dinner, but it would still be eating on the same kind of diet other than sushi, probably is what we ate out most. But I think it was more just, the chicken rice diets, and that worked well for me.
Yeah. Did you even like watch the news or anything during that time, or would you just tune your mind out too?
I didn't really. I don't think I turned even the televisions on much, to be honest. And it's crazy because you guys, people watching this, probably like, man, what a lifestyle, right? Remember, we didn't really YouTube wasn't popular back then.
No.
Right? So
we weren't killing time on the internet like we are now. Like we weren't killing time on our phones.
Yeah, smartphones didn't. I remember telling people, hey, I'm going in the gym. Call me in a couple hours. I'll be done. And the phone would stay in the car. Like we weren't filming. I remember when Mitsuru Okabe would come film all my DVDs, and he would film Battle for the Olympias. And I literally would be like, damn, he's coming this week. And I don't want him around me to film my training. Like I had to put my mindset forward and say, okay, this is going to be distracting to have a camera in my face. But I used to tell him, listen, do not bother me. Don't ask questions. Don't let me train and let me just do what I did. And that's what I always loved about my videos versus I'm not going to sit there and say Ronnie's weren't realistic, but he did these, he squatted 800, and yeah, it's impressive. But some of his videos, he trained like the real Ronnie Coleman, but nothing was fake in my video. Like what you saw me eat and what you saw my days home with the dogs, the training, that was exactly how I did it on everyday basis. I didn't change gyms to have a better atmosphere or anything like that. It was just automatic. And I loved that. It was raw, right? That's what we don't see as much nowadays, is even people that film their YouTube stuff. It's not as raw. And that's what we kind of focus on with JTV is hey, I get up in the morning, my hair's all over the place, right? I got up this morning, did my cardio, I jumped in the swimming pool, and here I am doing this broadcast with you guys. So it's I just believe in raw stuff because that's real, and that's how people are going to relate, and that's how people are going to learn, right?
But when I was watching you back in the day, I think what was funny, and obviously I listened to the podcast you did with Fuad, and he was talking about how you used to be introverted, yep, and then you became more extroverted. But what I found interesting was what I was drawn to following you was I literally felt like before we ever met, I knew you. I knew your dog's name. I knew your wife. I knew your thing. And I always wondered back in the day, because that was something no one else did. And I just literally copied it. I was like, because I realized I don't really care to watch Jay in the gym. It's fine, but we've all seen curls. It's not that exciting to me. But going, oh, okay, so that's Scrappy, that's, you know what I mean? And on down the list, you start to feel like you actually knew somebody. Was that intentional, or were you just living life and it just happened?
That was just me. And that's, if you guys know me on a personal level, it's like anything goes. I'm not much of a conversationist, but when you ask me to speak, I'll speak a lot, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm more of a jokester more than, I don't really take things as serious as people thought I was very robotic, which I think I was. That person's kind of dead now, in my opinion, because if you asked me right now to say, okay, why don't you get the mindset, go back and train for the Olympia, I don't think I could do it, because I couldn't even put myself in that realm again, because I had a different vision then, and obviously things have changed drastically in the business itself, and not for the better, in my opinion, honestly. Mm-hmm. So I was just me. Like, that was what I was. And if you met me, and hopefully, like, when we met, Dusty, you were like, okay, this is the guy that I knew from the videos, right? Nothing really changes. And, you know, I was respectful to my peers, even people like yourself. You were an amateur, you know, when I was at that level, right?
Yeah.
And you were an up-and-coming guy. And you know, I was appreciative towards all you guys. And, you know, and I just wanted to be a real person. That's what it really came down to.
I think it's funny though, because you do have you had a way of, because you were just being yourself, and I think, it's like I said, and some of it you're borrowing, and I know Ron's the same way, and some of it's just the way life is. But I mean, I remember, because obviously I was traveling and making money long before I was a pro, and I'd see you at the airport in Germany or something, and I mean, people think they know your schedule. Then there's people like me that's closer that also think we know your schedule, and then there's your real schedule, which is even beyond that. But anyone I've ever talked to, Ron, me, anyone, it's like I'd see you and you'd like break stride, come back, check in, what's going on, cool, say something about, you know, because Todd obviously does my videos and did yours for a long time as well, and kind of be on your way. And I always remember thinking like, fuck, how do you have time for that? Like, because if I'd seen you and it just waved, I'd have been like, cool, like not non-issue, obviously, but that is a story I heard so many people say with you. So it's kind of funny when you were robotic, that was still at your peak, but you were doing, it was both, you know what I mean? So it doesn't really surprise me when you take away the bodybuilding part that it became easy to do that full time.
Yeah. I mean, it's with me, it's like, I still, like, it's funny now, I flip through, you know, the YouTube stuff when I'm eating in the morning, and, you know, I see all your stuff on there. I see Fuad's. I see what everyone's doing. I see Chris Bumstead stuff. And, like, I watch it, you know, and I'm a fan of all these stuff, even these YouTubers. And, you know, a lot of bodybuilders, they rag on, like, you know, the different divisions, right? But I'm a fan of, like, all divisions now, because I like the personality of some of these guys, and I like what they do. And I like to try to see, okay, what is this generation compared to, like, when we're going back in time right now? Like, how was I different, right? And who's the most similar to me? Because I'm still interested in, like, is there anyone with the mindset that I'm whatever? But what I like to do is, when I always, like, had this thing, when I walked into a room, I tried to acknowledge everyone, because there's always some sort of tension, especially when people don't know me and they've only seen me in pictures or watch videos or whatever. So I try to, like, say, okay, let's break the ice, because, you know, we all share the same thing, right? We all have passion towards fitness and what.
A little bit frozen.
A lot, but.
Hey, you just froze for a second there.
Yeah, this is that's the problem with the internet. So with, you know, I just try to acknowledge everyone and make everyone feel welcome.
Yeah. What I wanted to ask you about, you know, not just the good times, but, you know, 2008 when you lost the title. I mean, as a fan, obviously, I assume that's one of your lowest points in your career. What exactly do you think happened that year for you to not be the Jay Cutler that you had been, you know, from 2001 onward?
It started in 2007. You know, I had an infection in 2007, my shoulder. Almost pulled out of the show, actually. I came in off. Lost to Victor, which was controversial, right? And then 2008 came, and I wasn't at my best there either. And then I lost to Dexter. I don't know. I think I got a little complacent, to be honest. I mean, looking back now, I thought it would be easy. I didn't think I had the competition that I had in the past. So I never thought Dexter Jackson would beat me, ever. And I didn't come in at the prejudging like I should have, and obviously night show I did come back better, but I still lost, and deservingly so. But I knew I could come back and win it. Like, that's when I came back behind you, that poster behind you in 09. And, you know, but I think you get complacent with stuff sometimes. Like I tell you, I didn't enjoy the competitions. Like, I can sit here and now and say I hated it. You know, I hated competing. I didn't enjoy it. I did it because I was forced to. And when I retired, it was the greatest day of my life, besides the first day I started training. Fortunately, like I said, I love training in the gym, but I hate being on stage. I love when I get on stage and the crowd response, but that's it. I hate the process getting there. I hated the tensions. I hated the hype. And there wasn't one thing that was really necessarily enjoyable. I didn't enjoy the competition, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it actually totally does. I've heard that from a lot of people. I mean, it was my least favorite part of the process too, you know. So you lose to Dexter. Are you standing on stage thinking, I'm going to win this back? Or does it take a while? Like, does it take a day or a month? Or like, does it take time for you to know you're going to win it back?
Or to get pissed off?
Yeah.
At first I thought, okay, I was relieved, right? I was relieved because the pressure wasn't there, because now I don't have the title, right? But then I wanted to quit. And I said, okay, I'm done. And then the next thing, I turned around and I thought about a month after, like, okay, I'm going to come back and win it. That's really what happened in my mind.
How did you do with the because I remember as a fan hearing, like, you know, they're doing as the Olympiads leading in, who's getting what, and it's like, all right, I got Jay in 5th, I got Jay in 3rd, I got Jay, and I remember as a fan going, what?
Well, what are you talking about?
Like, how? Because it's amazing.
He's the guy that beat Ronnie Coleman.
Yeah, the way the sport is, I guess you're their favorite, and then you win too much or whatever. And as Lee Priest used to always say, everyone hates a winner. How did it, like, did that motivate you at all leading into the show, seeing that? Because I remember, I mean, literally, there's 2 moments in my fan life that I'll remember forever. One being 03 when Ronnie walked out, because it was just the freakiest thing I've ever seen. And then 2, for sure, and the most exciting was actually in 09 when you came out and you walked out about 10 steps and just stopped. Mm-hmm. And I remember the crowd being like, oh, fuck, well, this is done. I mean, it was over. You could have just walked off the stage. Like, was that motivating along the way? Did it piss you off? I mean, what was it?
Yeah, it's funny. You gave me goosebumps when you said that, because, like, I knew when I stepped up those stairs, if you watch the video, like, there's a video of when I'm coming up and I look out into the crowd, and I knew.
Yeah.
I knew because backstage, it was when I took my clothes off. I remember Tamer, who promotes now, and his brother were standing there, and they're like, holy shit. Like, they were standing there like, oh my goodness. And everyone was just like, oh boy, like, this is something we've never seen. So I won backstage, right. and I knew that I was confident. I remember, not 2 hours before prejudging, Hani helped me that year, and we're in this Residence Inn, which was over by the convention center, and him and his wife, I remember posing, and his wife was like, oh my God, like, and I thought something was bad. And she's like, holy shit, like, she couldn't believe it. And he's like, you got to take a picture of this. And when they showed my backside, like, it was just something I'd never seen before, ever. Mm-hmm. And that's when I said, okay, this is a wrap, And it was redemption. It was redemption. And I kind of, if you go back to, like, the fan response, it's kind of like, what have you done for me lately? Right. I mean, I don't blame that. So people are like, oh, Jay's done. Even Flex Magazine went against me, and that was my contracted magazine. And I remember I couldn't wait to leave that magazine when it was done. I signed with MD because they treated me so poorly. And then, of course, that cover where I ripped that was my favorite Flex ever, where I ripped Phil Heath and Dexter Jackson in half. But it was just like everyone had given up on me except for the people around me. And it was the best team I ever established training. I had a great group. My mindset was like zero pressure. It was kind of like 01 all over again, like go for broke. And I loved that when Chris used to tell me we're going for broke, you know? Yeah, I had switched coaches a little bit for, you know, different reasons. I mean, I've talked about in the past. I just wanted to try something different. And, you know, my effort was definitely more. I mean, I was beaten down in 08. So I said, I got to come back in 9 and win this thing. The only problem was I still think can get better, right? It can't ever get better than that 09 victory.
Right.
And it never did. I should have retired then. I came back in 10 and won again, but it was just like a lackluster, like, okay, whatever. I won another one, right? But 09, it was like so much excitement. It could have been one of the greatest moments ever. I mean, it's the only time in history it's been done. We'll see if Phil Heath can do that this year, reclaim the title. But, you know, he's still not going to win it the next year. You know, it's different when you come back after losing it the year prior, right?
It's also totally different because for that same thing, like you said, the fans and the magazines, I guess you're right. Like, they never went against you because it was literally, I remember, like, when you stopped, everyone was Team Jag. I mean, I saw Ronnie's mom and Dexter's mom, like, pro out their Jay Cutler shit. Like, everyone was Team J once that happened. And I just remember thinking, like, I'm so glad I'm here for this.
Mm-hmm. Because
right now, even with Phil, and I'm excited he's coming back, but nothing will be that moment again because it was just like, holy shit. Like, what just happened? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought you were like 290 pounds, by the way, just because you looked so big that year in my head.
255, right? 255 in 09?
254, yeah, 254.
Yeah, and I remember you looked like you were like literally 280. It was so big.
My favorite part about 09 was at the night show because I hadn't seen prejudging. I only went to the finals. So I didn't know what was going on. The first guy out was Branch. And I remember thinking it was like the craziest Branch I had ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Like, he was just the best. And then every guy after him, I was like, nope. And what number were you? Like number 14?
No,
you were last.
No, I was second to last. Dexter, because Dexter, Mr. Olympia is always last. Yeah, I was like second to last or something.
So you're like, what, number 16 or something?
Yeah.
So the whole show went by, and I was like, Branch is winning, you know? And then you came out as like, oh, there we go. That's the show.
And Branch, you know, we were teenagers together. He beat me in the Teenage Nationals. And I love that guy's work ethic, you know. I mean, that's a guy that loved to train. And I always wondered if he loved to compete because he did compete a lot, probably more than I did. But that was his best. I think that was the best Branch Warren we ever saw. And, I mean, I was very happy to stand next to him once again. I mean, I was kind of shocked that Dexter was pushed to third that year. But, you know, Branch definitely deserved, you know, if I wasn't there, he may have won the Mr. Olympia, right?
For sure.
Yeah, there was a whole crew of just those crazy level guys that came up with you, but Branch was kind of the original Teen Nationals guy that had a victory over you all those years.
Yeah, and that ate me up, to be honest. That ate me up, you know, because I didn't win any overalls. Like, I didn't win the teen overall, and I didn't win the Nationals overall. Willie Stalling beat me the 96 Nationals when I got my pro card, and, you know, that was when they, you know, you got it for each class. But, man, it ate me my whole career. And, you know, when I won the Mr. Olympia, I was like, damn, you know, I should have won those other ones too, like the overalls.
That Teen Nationals overall.
You know you're a bodybuilder when you're thinking back to Teen Nationals, you just won the Olympia.
Yeah, it's like whenever I write my titles and I say, okay, what's you know, let me go back and I'm like, damn, how come I can't put the overalls on these two national shows, you know? And I was always disappointed, too, because I didn't have my picture on the wall and the national winners at Gold's Gym Venice. You know, it was Willie Stalling up there. Although I bet
you he's willing to switch now if you want to.
But, you know, it was so funny. You know, he reached out to me later and, you know, and Branch was always so respectful. I remember in 01 when you know, Branch wrote to me and he's like, man, you know, you really deserve to win this, you know, and like he was so respectful and we weren't super close even back then, you know, but it was just everyone came out of the woodwork to support me through my career. And, you know, the guys just were always respectful. And I'm a huge fan of everybody. Everyone has a certain place for me. Like when I go to this Olympia and watch in 2020, like I want to see Brandon win. I want to see Dexter. I want to see, you know, Phil come back and win it. I'd love to see Bonnick. I met him when he was the nobody, like very small. Rolly Winkler I met when he first started training. I mean, I'd love to see Roden come back and do it. Like that would be a phenomenal story. I love Steve Kuklo. He's my guy. You know, I mean, there's just so many guys that really, I mean, Rami, I'd love to see just pull a rabbit from the hat and just come in like we expect him to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So many guys, like I think it's very open field this year, man. Like,
oh yeah,
there's not a lot of guys that you're like, okay, he's automatically going to win. I'm not so sure Heath can come in and just dominate like he had in the past. I mean, I think Brandon's a pretty good force right now.
Especially if he improves.
Yes.
What about Flex Lewis in the open?
Yeah, there's another guy. I mean, I was with him this weekend, and like he's going to shock us. I mean, Hadi Chupin I called the Hadi Chupin thing last year. I knew he'd do great, but I think Flex Lewis can cause a lot of damage up there. He's definitely going to put a wrench in it, and I just hope all the guys can show up and compete. Because
that's the scary part.
I mean, if they all show up, I mean, guys, this could be one of the greatest Olympias ever, you know, honestly, because it's a very even field right now.
Yeah, it's not I mean, truthfully, since I started watching bodybuilding, it was always a 1 or 2 man show.
Yes.
You know, I mean, always. I remember thinking like, man, how bad would that suck? You're getting ready for the Olympia. You're a top in the mix guy, and it's not even conversation. Jay or Ronnie, you know, Jay or Phil.
Yeah, it's great for me, but it wasn't so fair for some of the other guys. I mean, for a lot of years, it was myself and Ronnie as the kind of predicted too. But it's so funny. I used to have to battle this guy's up and coming. I went through the Gustavo Bedells and the Gunter Schlierkamps and the Dexter Jacksons and, you know, all the newcomers that were always going to take position, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't get into the hype much. The magazines were really kind of the hype machines back then. It wasn't social media. A lot different nowadays because people have their favorites or whatever. But I don't think people have lost what the process of bodybuilding is. In my opinion, they don't really know. I think as the internet expands, like less people are better at judging these guys. So you go to a show and you both know sitting and watching from an audience is way different from watching online.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it actually, you know, and then we find ourselves critiquing the show based on the videos and pictures, and then you realize after you've given your opinion on everyone that you weren't there, and you know it's just not the same.
I remember talking to Chris about that with Dorian, like his last win. And I was like, well, you know, I mean, that could have went either way. And Chris was like, no. Like, no, it could not have went either way.
I can say firsthand, like when I went for 95 Olympia for the first time. And I remember thinking Dorian Yates, you know, his arms were okay. His legs were okay. Had the crazy calves in the back and whatever. But when he walked out, it was like, okay, lights out. Everyone else is. And Nasser looked amazing that year. He got third.
Mm-hmm.
I think Sean Ray or Kevin Levrone was second. And those guys, but Dorian blew everybody away, and it didn't matter. Like his arms and legs and whatever looked better than everyone else's on that stage, just not in pictures.
Right.
But the condition was like something you'd never seen. I mean, in today's era, Dorian Yates would still smoke everybody because he just had that crazy condition and he was bigger than everyone, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So like, I hate when they compare eras of bodybuilding. Even standing next to me, like, yeah, I had some muscle, but I don't think I could have beaten Dorian Yates. Honestly, I couldn't have, you know? Even the 09 version, like, it was good, but it was just a different era. Like,
right.
His conditioning was second to none.
I wanted to ask you about, you know, your longevity in the sport was, you know, something that you mentioned all the guys that came and went, you know, the Gustavos and all those guys that came and were really, really great, but they just didn't have the longevity you had. You know, your training was very instinctual, but looking back, what was some of the riskier things you did in the gym that, you know, maybe you think, oh, maybe I didn't have to do that, or I'm glad I didn't do too much of that?
Yeah, not that much, you know. And early on, I was more of a ego trainer, so I would squat a ton and I would strain my legs. Or I remember even in, you know, when I was coming up in 04 and I was watching and training with Ronnie in the off season, and he would stick to barbell bench pressing and inclining barbell. I mean, his routine on a Friday, Saturdays, he did chest. It was flat bench barbell, incline barbell, and decline barbell. That was the 3 movements that we did, 9 sets total. That would be his chest workout. So I started doing that on the weekends. I traveled with him, which was a lot. So I remember, you know, going up to 405 on the flat bench, and you guys know how dangerous that is. And I started cranking, and I was strong, so I could bang out rep after rep. And I remember, you know, twice I strained my pec doing flat bench presses, and finally I got away from that. But, you know, that was the thankful thing about Chris. Like, he worked as, you know, not only my nutritionist, but he gave me training advice, and he was working with some great athletes, you know, Mike Francois, like all these guys. So he was able to give me insight on, okay, this is how you should train, and just to be a little smarter, right? Mm-hmm. And fortunately for me, I didn't need to get bigger, guys, right? So it was never like, oh, I need to put on a lot of size. I mean, when I was fighting Ronnie, it was, yeah, I needed to be a little bigger, but I never was going to step my training up to do an 800-pound squats or even 600-pound squats. Like, he did 600 when we were on the road on our Friday trainings. I remember doing legs with him, and I'd go up to 4 plates a side, and he would go up to 6 plates a side, you know? Uh-huh. And I knew not to do that. We do walking lunges. I'd go up to 225 walking. He'd go 315. I mean, this is when we were on a road trip.
Dehydrated, not sleeping.
Those are the worst.
Flying and stuff. And I said, man, you know, and I used to think in the back of my mind, is this what it's going to take for me to beat this guy? But I found kind of my own path, and I wrote it out, right? I waited and waited, and I knew that anyone could come in on or off, and I saw him start slipping in 05, and that's when I knew in 06 I had his number. But let's be real, I said it in every single interview I've ever done. Ronnie Coleman got older, and I was, you know, there in line. But I hung on. I kept going. I avoided the injuries. I tried to train smart. You know, I was doing all the tissue work and really taking care of my body, which I do a lot of tuning still to this day. I get up every morning, I stretch, I do my cardio for an hour. I think a lot of it has to do with the nutrition. I still eat super healthy, and I think when you eat quality foods, your muscle tissue is going to react a lot different. There's going to be less inflammation. So it's all it's a general circle of health and wellness. And let's be real. I mean, when we trained, I mean, obviously I took what I had to take to get to that level and compete. And, you know, the main thing is I always tell people, like, when you take, you know, steroids or whatever else, like, you're using it mostly in my profession to cut down and not necessarily to put on more size, right? It's about holding that size and leaning down at the same time. So I look back at that and I say, okay, the biggest risk I took is probably what I put into my body. But at the same time, you know, I feel like I was careful about it, but there's no question to the extreme that we had to compete at. I don't think bodybuilding in general is super healthy. I'm just thankful I'm living on the other side, and I'm able to continue to train with no restrictions, and I'm still doing the best I can to maintain a decent physique, you know, more lean down and just functional.
What are you thinking about when you go to the gym now?
I'm thinking about a pump. That's about it. Like, how can I get this pump? And I'll tell you guys, it's a lot harder. You know, you guys are both pretty good size still. I consider myself like people still look at me and they say, oh, you're huge or whatever, but I'm far from what I used to be. The hardest part for me is like getting a back pump and shoulder pump at this point. I can get my legs pumped, biceps and triceps get pumped, but chest gets pumped, but the back and you know, shoulders don't get the crazy pump anymore. So I know for those body parts, like, I'm like, man, I'd love to get a pump today. So I try to eat a little more of those days, and you know, I try to focus on exercise that I feel more. And like I said, I'm not restricted, but I'm not doing 150-pound shoulder dumbbell presses anymore, and I'm not T-bar rowing 10 plates on a bar. So I feel people's pain when they say, oh, I can't train light. I mean, I do more squeezing now, but the muscle's just not there like it used to, you know?
Right.
What's the thing that is there anything you hate about, downsizing and retirement? Like, is there anything?
Or is it all awesome?
Or is it all awesome? Or is there the odd day where you're like, oh man, I miss having 22-inch arms or whatever?
I don't, I still got the arms, right? But the hardest part is I'm like in between a 2X and an XL t-shirt.
Clothes is about the hardest part.
It's like you're tasting a little bit of a too small of a t-shirt size there.
If I wear a standard shirt, like it's a little too long as a 2X, but an XL is a little too tight in the arms and shoulders, right?
Yeah.
The 2X fits better, but the length of it, so I'm kind of frustrated when I put on a shirt. I can wear a shirt when it's brand new once, but once I wash it as an XL, it's like I can't wear it again because it looks like my little brother's T-shirt, You
look like that guy buying a shirt too small so he looks bigger.
So I still get the looks. I mean, still big enough where, definitely my ego was never why I trained. I mean, I never wanted to walk around and be that guy like flexing, and I don't do the imaginary, lat pose, I still get the respect. I mean, the track record proves itself. But I don't know. Downsizing for me is good. I think as I'm getting now, I'm 47 now, so the skin doesn't lay as great as it once did, right?
You're using all sort of fancy creams and now?
But I've noticed, like, on the side, like right under my pec, like sometimes when I stand and I take video filming, like me cooking my food, like I'm like, damn, I see a little line there. You know what I mean?
You hear that, everybody? Jay is human and notices that shit.
Because I still got pretty hefty pecs, you know what I mean? So you got, like, there's a lot of muscle there. So as it starts to, the skin was stretched out for all those years, right? So I'm trying to avoid having loose skin, man.
I love this shit because it's so classic. Like, I tell people when I'm done, I can't wait to get down in size. Like, everyone thinks that you're going to want to hold on forever. I'm like, man, if I get to like 230, buy t-shirts at a store, not order these giant tents anymore.
You love the 5Xs off eBay, buddy.
Oh God, the sloppy mess. Yes.
I look at some of my fashion guys back in the day. Oh my goodness. I mean, the pants, like, I mean, way too long because they had to fit, I would tuck them up in my crotch because so my legs wouldn't rub together. You know what I'm saying? Like,
do the same.
When we do the cardio, right? We tuck the shorts in there or whatever. So, I mean, the shirts, I wore 4Xs. I mean, I was hard to order 4Xs, but I still look at it and I'm like, God, I look like a clown, wearing those big outfits.
One of my favorite things of yours is in some of your really old videos. Like, I think you're still living out east. You've got, it looks like you cut the waistband off a shirt and use it as a headband. It was a little gym towel, Ron, actually. Oh, you cut a strip off of it? I ripped a strip that was like this much, and it was a thing, and this is now world famous. I could probably sell that headband, like, now sell like a market those. And I wrapped it around my head, and I was sweating, and I'm like, I'm going to put this ripped up towel on my head, and I never realized now it would catch. I don't think people cared about it 20 years ago, to be honest. I think now it gets more attention now than it did 10, 15, 20 years ago. Right. It's the most hardcore headband ever. Yeah, everything gets watched now, so they pay attention. I can tell you this week alone, 4 people have hit me up. Even today, Val hit me about the headband today. He hit me up this morning. He sent me an old video, and he's still reminiscing about how big I was. And he's like, dude, what about that headband? I love that thing. I said, dude, that was a ripped up fucking headband, What's great is it was a video. You might have worn that like once, and we would never know. One time for that chest video, and I was flexing, and I think I put it on just for like a couple sets. I think Val probably. And for us, that was it. That was part of your life. You're training that every day in my brain. I put a clip up of you. I can't remember. It was one of the battle videos from the 90s where you were still living out east and you were driving the old. I can't remember what SUV you had. That old Land Cruiser. And I put that on my story because it was on the screen, and I put it on my story. And Chris texts me and he goes, I've got stories about that truck.
Yeah. Yeah, I can remember that was like a big stepping stone to me. I mean, man, I could have so many stories. Like that was like one of my dream cars. It was a 96 Land Cruiser. And, I paid like nothing for that lease. It was like no money at all. And I actually shipped that to California. I used to put Scrappy in there. He would sit outside in the gym. He would sit in the truck and wait for me to get out of the gym. He went everywhere with me. And I used to drive that truck to Maine. And literally I'd drive 2 hours up to see Chris, literally take my clothes off and pose, hit a couple shots, eat a meal, and then I'd drive 2 hours back home. And I ran into like Paul Demayo there. I remember when Paul Dillette was staying with him, Mike Francois, all those, he lived on the beach then. Chris had a condo on the beach. And, that's when Laura was competing at the best level, right? She was second, the Olympia. And I remember seeing, like, I passed Paul Demayo one time and I'm like, oh my God, like, I can't believe I'm in the same house as Paul Demayo, He was my idol growing up. I remember seeing him in Flex magazine all veined up and he had a jackhammer in his hand because he was doing jackhammering for his job at the time.
I remember that picture.
And it said the Boston Mass or something like that. And he was just like all veiny and he had the crazy legs with the jean shorts on. And he was like, damn, I can't believe he works with a jackhammer with jean shorts on,
Every day.
Real life.
Thing in a magazine. I remember seeing, Sean Ray was like, I wanted to be Sean Ray because he had the pictures in front of the Ferraris with the chicks. And I'm like, man, if I can go to California, I'm going to get a Ferrari like Sean Ray, But I didn't realize they were rented back then,
Yeah, you also realize that when you were at that level, you were never fitting in a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. I rented one 2 years ago in Vegas just for fun.
Yeah.
And I had to take the top down to get into the Lamborghini just to drive it. And so I'd put it back up once I got in, and then we'd get where we were going. I'd take it down so I could get back out. I'm like, hard to look cool when you can't even get in and out of the car.
Yeah. What's the dumbest thing you've ever spent money on?
Oh God.
Like, a significant amount of money. It's got to be something. I can't imagine.
It's hard. I actually at one point, I remember, I'll tell you just early on, like I remember going and getting my National Academy of Sports Medicine certification. Like I thought I was going to be a personal trainer and I was already a pro. I already competed in my first Olympia. And I remember walking into the class and people are like, the teacher was like a huge fan. He's like, oh my God, Jay Cutler, why are you here getting certification? Like, what do you want to get certified for? I'm like, well, I just want to learn, and I didn't realize how in depth the test was. Like it was pretty in depth at that time. And, it wasn't like a mail order, like whatever, you have to be hands on. And, that was kind of one of the crazy things I did early on, thinking, okay, I'll get the certification. I'll start personal training people. And, my career went through the roof. Like, nowadays, like, does anyone have certification online? Like, think how many people we know that are in the fitness industry that train people, do diets, and they don't have a nutrition background, right? It's just more trial and error. I mean, Chris Aceto was one of the ones that had, he had the degree, right?
Mm-hmm.
But waste of money. I haven't wasted, I can tell you, I've done my investments, I bought properties, I bought a lot of crazy cars, but I don't think I really spent anything crazy, like stupidly on money, on anything like material or whatever,
What's the most profitable business that you've ever invested in outside of, actually being Mr. Olympia?
Real estate, for sure.
Real estate.
Yeah, that's why I moved to Vegas. And, that's been very successful for me. I came after 9/11, so I bought at the right time. It kept me in Las Vegas. That was influence of Chris also. Chris, as you guys know, is heavily into real estate now, but he wasn't back then. But I remember him saying, definitely invest your money. But I would say definitely the real estate, business ventures. I'm in cannabis now. It's pretty profitable. I do medical stuff. I buy medical liens. That's very profitable for me. A lot of interest, but I've had great advisement. So.
What was the peak? What you're selling all your merch. I got this hat out of your garage. What was the peak of your garage running as because you had you were cranking like a lot of shirts out of that garage.
Yeah, what's a little crazy is Gymshark. You saw the evaluation for Gymshark, right? Over $1 billion now. I remember when Gymshark came on. I mean, I had athletics prior to all that stuff, and I was running it out of my garage. And I was just doing T-shirts. I mean, I started the brand in '98. I started with like CUTLER Athletics and the Slow Monkey stuff. I think at my peak, I was doing $1 million a year out of my garage.
That's insane.
Before everyone else was doing T-shirts, like I think people caught on a little bit, but that's prior to like Live Fit and the Gymshark years, and you now you have VQ and you have all these other, which are more off brands of like more fitness related brands, right?
Right. Well, the industry changed, so who's buying shirts changed, The
aesthetic, the scooters became more popular. But I was selling signature clothing brands. I was like, it was the Swole Monkey or the CUTLER Athletics, or like that stuff was just very popular. I mean, I remember going to trade shows, and I mean, if I didn't come home with $5,000 extra from some of these trade show weekends, like it was a bust. I remember doing LA Fit Expo or Olympia, and it was like $20,000 to $50,000 in shirt sales.
I remember at the Olympia, everyone would set up. They had a booth with like an 8x10 and a T-shirt. And then you'd come around the corner, and you guys had the end spot because you had like 20 different shirts you could buy, all the videos. I remember just sitting there, and my brain has always been business. So I would just remember sitting over and watching, and Carrie would literally have a blue bank bag in one hand, and she was just the whole time. And you were at the end, you had like 4 people working for you that were just actually selling the stuff. And I'm like, he's going to make more money at the Olympia before it starts.
Yeah, we had that end space, and I had a lot of people. Like I said, that was '09 was like the peak year, and Meet the Olympians that was a big plan, is to sell the shirts and really get the merch going. It was more like, hey, you're on the team, like let's get Team CUTLER merch out there. So when the audience, like people are cheering because I'm back, And I remember I was the last one to leave, guys. Like I stayed there until the very end. I remember Hani screaming at me from behind the curtain, like, dude, you need to go home and rest. And I'm like, no, there's still fans waiting. And I think I was there till midnight or something, the night before I had to compete. And I just loved it, man. It was, I was very blessed. I can remember the DVD sales, and like I would do a new DVD every year, and I remember having all the girlfriends and friends over here of like all my buddies handwriting out the addresses. Like we'd get the influx on the internet of like overseas people. I remember Dennis Wolf ordered one of the videos one time before he really was super popular. I said, I saw it come through, and I'm like, man, send him a free video. He was up and coming at the time. Right. But I used to, have everyone packing those DVDs, man. It was crazy. And those videos were like really now what make me as popular as I am. I mean, that's what you mostly see is in the motivational like videos that they make on YouTube, Machiavelli Motivation and all those. Those are all from those videos. I'm sure both you guys watched those and said, man, Jay's training in the middle of the night and Jay's eating this and eating rice cakes. And I used to eat 300 carbs after training. And I remember asking Chris, how am I going to get 300 carbs? He's like, okay, applesauce, put honey on all your food. I ate a whole bag of rice cakes, and whatever it took to get there, I drink 100 grams of carbs, which I used the powdered Gatorade at the time.
Yep.
I'd either buy Carbo Force. That's before even Vitargo and then Go thing. And I mean, you guys know, it's just like we make shift with everything. I mean,
just find a way.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it took to be what I was. I mean, I had to take in the food. That was the most important thing in my day.
So now that, I mean, blatantly, it's not money. It's not, I mean, you can be done whenever you want to be. You could stop today. What keeps you coming back into our industry still?
I got a taste of it this weekend because like people come up to me with their stories and I was focused on being the best of me, right? I never thought when I first started, I want to be famous and I want to influence people. Like that wasn't a thought process. I just wanted to be really good and make a career of this and really try to be financially supportive of what I considered my hobby. So what I love is the reactions, and no one I ever meet seems to want, not very few want to be an Olympia champion, because I deal with all age groups now, right? I mean, guys at 70 years old are coming to see me, or women even, that just found fitness a year or two prior. And they followed a story of what I did, or, you know, how I spoke. Or they saw the battles with Ronnie Coleman. Those battles with Ronnie Coleman now are so significant in my career. Those second places were a blessing to me, right? If it was just an easy victory, and if I came in 0-2 and won after 0-1, you know, close decision, you know, it probably would have changed the whole scope of everything. But those close battles and me coming back time and time again, it's given inspiration, especially for the new generation of even bodybuilders. I really enjoyed the feedback. I enjoy being a motivational person, because I can sit here and do these interviews, and I'm not a motivational speaker. Like, I don't sit there and say, this is how you need to put your mindset, right? I was just a guy, you know, that was an introvert and learned how to speak a little bit. And now I enjoy meeting the fans. I mean, I realize what my true love of bodybuilding is. It's yes, I love the training. I like meeting the fans more than I like competing on stage. I missed when Ronnie quit. It wasn't the same for me. The love was somewhat gone. And if you ask me why I was off in 2008, that was part of the reason, because it was awkward without Ronnie Coleman there anymore. And remember, I was trying to figure out what I was. I was trying to figure out, was I still a mass monster, or did I need to downsize? I mean, I won my first Olympia at 270. And I was my best in 2009 at 254. What does it tell you? I mean, I came down. I didn't have to battle the beast anymore, and that's why I never thought Dexter would beat me. But, you know, to this day, like, I realize that I have a position in this business that people have a respect factor, and they still want to learn. And sometimes that face-to-face interaction, or even on the internet, you know, doing these kind of broadcasts, it gives people motivation. Like, listen to my story and realize, holy shoot, this guy's the same as me. Like, he has the same vision, or like, he cooks his chicken the same way, or he sits, you know, I got this dog sitting on my lap right now. And, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I live a normal life. And that's what I want people to realize, is like, I'm just a guy trying to like enjoy my life, and I have a passion for fitness, and, you know, and I was able to achieve the greatest achievement sitting behind me, you know?
Right. Yeah. Hey, Dusty, you got any fan questions for Jay at all? I've got
do I have any? I have a ton, so you can go ahead and toss your first. And
here's a good one. If you had to start a concrete business, but you could only hire pro bodybuilders, who would you hire, and who wouldn't you hire?
Branch is getting hired.
For sure. Branch Warren would be the best worker ever.
No, everybody knows that immediately, like, Branch.
What about who wouldn't you hire? No chance.
Probably Big Rami. Probably Big Rami, because he's just too big to do anything, I think.
Right? He'd get too hot. He'd be like, ah.
But then I think that, you know, I don't know if he would like to be like, if he would work. I just see Branch like, I don't know. I could see
Branch taking over the job site.
Yeah.
Branch is intense with everything. I guest posed with him one time, Jay. We were walking through a casino, and he's walking. I thought we were hunting something.
Yeah.
I'm running behind him, and finally go, Branch, where are we going? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, are we going to kill something? And he just starts laughing. I'm like,
he has a certain even walk about him, right? That he's just like,
I thought he had a knife. I mean, we were going somewhere.
Did he ever invite you to go hunting?
No, we never really, because I'm not into, like, I grew up on the farm and I hunted as a kid, and I never want to kill anything, guys. I'll be honest. Like,
there's a Yorkie in his lap.
I just, you know, my brothers hunt still, and I had to kill the chickens and stuff. I mean, I used to shoot woodchucks and stuff, and I learned to shoot a gun when I was like 6 years old. I have guns, but I'm not a huge fan of.
Well, you better have a gun. You live in Vegas.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty people here. So.
Okay, I got one. Who's one of the most underrated bodybuilders that you competed with that you didn't think got enough love?
I still say Dexter Jackson. I think he should be like right there with Ronnie Coleman as far as like the greatest ever. You know, I think he should be definitely in the talk of like greatest champions, I think.
What's your favorite moment with Ronnie Coleman?
My favorite moment was in Pittsburgh in 2003. We were in a nightclub, okay, I hate to call it like a bar, like it was a bar, a club, whatever. And I remember like we were kind of like interacting and having a good time, whatever. And Ronnie Coleman sat against the wall, and he was in the plaid, you know, the NPC plaid pants and the matching top.
Oh,
and
God.
He had the sleeves cut because we had just guest posed at Manion's show. And I was there, Gunther was there, all the top guys or whatever, and we were hanging out. And Ronnie sat there against the wall, and he just bobbed his head, and they just played hip-hop all night, right? And we lit probably there like 3 hours, right? And Ronnie didn't move once, and people were walking by like they would double take because the veins were sticking. You know, he was 300 pounds. And I remember we got in the car, and Rico from MPC said, Ronnie, did you have a good time? And he goes, hell yeah. And he didn't move the whole night. He just didn't talk to one person. And Ronnie was like, he asked a question and he lit up like a little kid, and he goes, hell yeah. And he didn't like the whole night, you know.
He just sat there listening to Dr. Dre all night. Probably.
He is the most happy-go-lucky guy that there is. Like he just loves his life. And that's so great to see.
That's awesome. I can totally see that too, knowing Ronnie. Okay, so I have one that a lot of people asking these ones. What advice would you give on someone getting into real estate investing now?
Definitely pick the areas that, you know, probably you'll see an increase in value. Or I would do something for rental properties like multi-units. That's how I would look. But don't be afraid to venture out of your comfort zone, meaning like your areas where you live, because there's a lot of great deals across the country right now that you can scoop stuff up, and interest rates are really low right now. So it's a great time to take advantage of it.
For sure.
What about, well, you mentioned, I remember you told me a while ago you're in the cannabis industry now. What exactly are you doing? Let everyone know. And what do you see happening in that industry over the next, say, 5-10 years?
So I started with a medical license and now, of course, it's recreational in Vegas. So I grow flower. So we have a grow facility in North Las Vegas near the Air Force Base. And so we sell to dispensaries. We grow flower in different strains. So I would definitely, there's a lot of obstacles. You need a heavy capital in order to make the move on this. Obviously, I got in really early, about 6 years now. So I was in on the early stages, but, you just need to have the right balance. Having great management is super important. Like I've learned through, hard process, that you got to have someone that knows, and everyone's an expert. That's the problem. There's a lot of people that used to grow marijuana legally that think they can do it and pass tests in Las Vegas, but it's a little more difficult than what you think it is.
Anything that makes big money is going to be very difficult legally.
It's, remember, it's not 100% legal anyway. I mean, it's not federally approved yet. It's on a state level, but for some reason you still pay the taxes. It's a lot of taxes.
Is there any business that you've gone into that you're like, oh shit, this didn't work, I gotta shut this down, I'm gonna pull out of this, and you kind of took a bit of a loss on it?
I was in the ammo business for a minute, cutting and cleaning brass, but brass is really hard to get. So that I have a machine actually that cuts and cleans ammo. It's a bliss machine. And that was probably, I paid almost $220,000 for this machine. And right now that machine is sitting because, I don't have the access to the brass. So that's one of the business where I looked at it as okay, this is someone came to me as more of an investor. And right now that machine is not working for me. So if you said it's a loss, I don't know if it's necessarily a loss because the machine is still valued, right? Mm-hmm. I think ammo business is still a strong business. You just have to have the distribution, and obviously it's very competitive with ammo, and it's very hard to get right now.
Yeah. Everyone's
trying to buy it. So
everyone's stocked up waiting for the election.
Yeah. It's not getting cheaper. Brass is expensive. They jack the prices.
You ever think of like running for mayor or politics at all, or local council in Vegas, or?
I never discuss politics or religion. So,
right.
I'm not a political person. Do I like what's going on? Not necessarily. I did vote for Trump back when he got elected. I will vote for Trump when time comes. So that's about my political stance at this point. But there's a lot of chaos, and I understand why some of it's going on. Other things I might not. During this pandemic, like, this whole mask thing and restrictive, like it's going to take a toll. I mean, a year from now is where you're going to see more of effects than you will today with businesses, because the banks are going to end up buying a lot of properties back. There's going to be a lot of people that pick those up, but I think you'll see the effects in a year's time rather than now, more than anything.
Do you think that a real estate investor has an opportune window here coming up?
Big window, and people with a lot of capital are going to be very, very successful in that market.
Yep. That's what I've been waiting on. Some things that I want to do. I'm just, I can't do it now. I got to wait. Why? It's going to make me a lot more money soon on these kind of businesses than if I do it now.
If you're not looking to buy a house, I would definitely look at buying a house now for sure, because interest rates are low.
Yeah, now they're ridiculous. I'm talking more the larger buildings and things like that. I'm like, just wait.
Yeah, definitely.
Shopping centers.
Looking back on when you were a kid, was there an athletic moment, or maybe working in, the concrete business or something, where you realized you had more work ethic than other people? But did you know there was something different about you early?
No, I thought it was normal. I was forced to do the things I did, and I hated my family for it. My dad would drag me out of bed at 6 a.m. My brothers would put guilt trips on me if I didn't want to work. And I felt like I wasn't a privileged kid for sure. But, I learned that really set me up for bodybuilding. That gave me the backbone of, like, Dusty, you asked, like, what about when people turned on you and this and that? Like, that gave me the kind of introvert atmosphere, because I was just forced to work all the time, where, I had very thick skin because I was doing things the more you're forced to do things you don't necessarily want to do, you become, I think, stronger mentally and even physically. Like, that gave me the physique to actually start bodybuilding. So, I credit my family now for my success more than anyone, where I didn't see that early on. Even in my career, I didn't see it early on, but I learned that, that was not taught, it was forced.
Right.
Forced.
I got a question here. Because of Corona and everything that shut down, which sport did you miss the most?
I've only really watched basketball and football. I'm not a huge baseball. I love going to baseball games, though. That's the funnest thing I enjoy doing. But obviously, with no fans, it's a little difficult. But football hasn't started yet. I hope they have a season, because I will watch some. I'm watching the playoffs now in basketball, but I haven't really honed in on a lot of TV. When we were on our 2-week quarantine, I watched Ozarks, which I think everybody did.
Great show.
That was the last thing I really watched, to be honest. I don't turn on the television much. I watch your podcast and a few other things. So
that's funny, because Jay, I got over the last year, I got both of my dogs puppies. I didn't realize I hadn't turned the TV on since they were around, and I turned it on one day, and they were like,
they didn't know what to think.
They stopped. They were watching it. They're pacing, and it hit me. I was like, oh, shit, I've never turned this thing on before. Like, they had no idea what was happening. There's sound coming out. I'm like, this will be interesting.
I think it's funny that between the three of us, we have 4.5 Yorkies. Because you got two, and my dog's half Yorkie. It's something about
shit.
Angie brought those when she came into my life 4 years ago. So I never planned on, after Scrappy, to be honest, like I was like, I can't get another dog. He was 18 when he passed away, and I was so devastated. But, you know, she brought these little Yorkies, and I remember, I think the dogs moved in before she did. Like, she said, I have these dogs, and I said, can you bring them over? And they never left. It was like,
was that her way of getting stuck in there?
It was my choice, and then we travel with the dogs. We have them as service, and they come everywhere. They're great on the planes, and you know they're 3 and 5 pounds, so they're very small. They're teacup Yorkies.
When did you tell us about when you got Scrappy?
I got Scrappy. This is a funny story. So I had a breeder that my mom kind of led me to that bred Lhasa Poos and Cockapoos, like mix. And he was in Leominster, and I remember going up there with Carrie at the time, and she's like, we already had 2 dogs at the time, and she's like, I said, should we get a third? And she's like, yeah, I really want a puppy. And I'm like, okay. So we went up to the kennel. It was Richard's kennel in Leominster. And I remember walking in, and they had a cage set up, and there was Scrappy in a cage, like kind of pacing. And I said, man, I feel bad for that dog. Like, can we get this one? And I could see the look on her face was like, well, you told me we were going to get a puppy and be able to pick up a puppy, right? And she's like, okay, you know, let's get Scrappy. So he was returned. He was about 6 months old. And they said, yeah, that the guy couldn't keep him or whatever. So I remember we brought him home, and it was a Friday night, and we allowed ourselves one night out a week to eat out. It was a $20 meal, okay, at this place, Beeman's Tavern, because at the time I was a broke bodybuilder, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I was around 18 or 19, I think. And so we went to eat our dinner, and we came back after leaving them with the other 2 dogs, and Scrappy tore the whole house up, like ate all the plants and chewed up the pillows. And I'm like, oh my gosh, is this a mistake, you know? And then eventually he became like, you know, my favorite. And we had to give the other dogs away, and we actually gave Scrappy away to her dad. And about a month passed, and we went to visit the dad, and he's, you know, the dog was there. And I remember when we went to leave, Scrappy got up in the window as we were leaving and was looking out the window like, what, you're not taking me with you guys? And the day after, the dog started like peeing and crapping all over the house and tearing stuff up again. And the dad's like, listen, I can't keep him, because we were moving at the time. And I said, you know what, I'll take him back or whatever, because he was going to have to give him away. And I thought that was a sign. Like, he was with me ever since. He moved to California with me. He became super famous in the bodybuilding stuff. I mean, I took him everywhere with me. Like, back when dogs didn't go places with people, there was no such thing as service animals then.
Mm-hmm.
But he would travel. He'd sit outside the World Gym in Lake Forest, and he'd wait for me. And he lived to be 18. He died the year after I quit. The year after I quit.
He was there for the whole thing.
He was there for the whole thing. So I felt like that was my angel, you know. And I'm very sentimental about my dogs, man. Like, I don't have children, so for me, it's like he was just everything to me. And as you guys know, any show I went to, hey, where's Scrappy, or how's Scrappy, or, you know, the videos, he was always there. And then we had the Airedales too, if you guys remember, the 2 big ones.
Yep.
Those only lived to be 10 years old. They both had strokes and passed away. But I was done with the dogs. And then now with the Yorkies, like, they don't leave my side. So
you're engaged again now, right?
Yeah.
So what's it like for, you know, she came into your life after the pro bodybuilding. So what, you know, when she comes into your life and she sees the Sandows and all the bullshit on the wall, and like, what's her take on the whole thing?
She kind of knew about it. She had competed before, and you know, with her, she just walked in the room. Actually, she's standing here, so I can only say so much. It's kind of funny because we didn't plan to. It wasn't like we met and it was like we were both looking to, you know, settle down. And so she knew kind of my background, but she was, of course, impressed. Like, she had learned more about it. She didn't follow me, but as she got to know me, she realized like, okay, this is a normal guy. I mean, I have one room in my house that has all those awards and everything else. But outside of that, besides me going to the gym, it's like I don't consider myself a bodybuilder anymore. But she had the passion for competing, and she has competed since we've been together. And, the lifestyle fits, like it's understood. And I'm very, very rigid with my routine still, which is it's very tough on relationships sometimes because of the work schedule. Like whenever I get frustrated, I said, I'm going to the gym to train. And obviously she trains too. We don't necessarily train together, but she kind of lets me do my thing and I let her do hers. And, we kind of find that balance. So it always works.
What do you think? Me and Dusty have talked about this a lot, but the whole bodybuilders thriving on routine and routine being necessary to be good at bodybuilding. What do you think comes first, the person who needs routine, or does the bodybuilding create the need for routine?
I think it depends how deep you get, but it's funny. I just did a YouTube video on this morning for jaywalking, actually. And we talked about routine because Dave was telling me how he went and shot Flex Lewis like 2 weeks ago, and he was in a good routine. And he's like, dude, I don't know how you do this, like the balance, the meals and the training, and still have the energy to do all this. And then you come home and you get back into and you guys both know traveling like crazy, especially for international stuff. Like it's hard to fall into that. So, you need, you create that lifestyle, right? And that's my box. Like you're talking about my box because you have to fall into, we talked about even training with certain outfits. Like when I do legs, I had to wear a certain pair of shorts that draped over my legs the right way when I squatted to make it feel right. I had to wear a certain shoe. I had to train in a certain gym on a certain piece of equipment or go under a bar that was in a certain corner because that mirror just worked well for me. We become very superstitious, right? Like
so much.
Oh my gosh, if I change this is going to affect, like I've had progression, so I don't want to regress, right? So I think you create that lifestyle. I think you create that boxy lifestyle. I think it's not for some. Some people can never seem to find the perfect atmosphere. I think if I wanted to give an example, and nothing to be negative, like Chris Cormier, right? We always talk about the potential, but Chris could never seem to hone in on, okay, this is the routine. And Chris used to tell me, you're too serious about what you do, And then, of course, I had the success, and I think he respects that. But, he was a huge mentor to me, by the way. He was very, very helpful with my career. And but I always respected the fact that Chris could shut off and then go live his lifestyle, and then he'd come back and diet for the shows and perform. But I just think that you need, in order to have the longevity, you need to have that consistency. And I think it spills over into your business. I think it spills over into your relationships and how you live your life. And I think I'm a little too anal about things still. Like I have to sometimes find myself like, wait a minute, Jay, like you're not training for this, or, you're not dieting for this. I just think it's a sickness and sort of a.
I was just gonna say, but I think it becomes it's a personality thing though.
Yeah. But when I say a sickness, you both laugh because it's obsessive, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's the thing is, I joke about that all the time because I find the bodybuilders that I know that are very successful are like me. Because if someone said to me, where's your light soy sauce? I'd be like, third shelf up, third bottle on the left.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay.
Yeah.
I don't let people like put shit back in my house because they won't put it where it goes.
No. It's I've seen a few pictures of you standing on a skateboard, and it made me think, is there anything that if you could have had like a free hour a day during all those years to do something else, what would you have picked? And it wouldn't have affected your bodybuilding or anything, just like a free hour where you could have done anything else.
Anything besides my couch, my desk, or the kitchen.
Yeah. Something else, something like a free hour.
Yeah. Listen, I do it now. I skateboard, I ride the quads, even if I go up and down the street. One thing I miss, I rode ATVs growing up. I'm jealous as hell of Reagan Grimes right now that he gets to go to that dirt track. And I mean, he's a little big for that 450, but I like what he's doing, and people might say, oh, he's crazy, but you know what? That kid's living his life. And now I wish I had a track that I could go to right close to my house like that.
Right. You'd ride some ATVs or some dirt bikes?
I have them in my garage. It's just a little hot in Vegas, to be honest. Like, I rode motorcycles. You guys seen the videos. I've had bikes. It's just too dangerous. I just value my life so much now that I don't want to risk things. It's funny, at 25 or even 30, I didn't think past, when you're 40 or 45. Like, I was one of those guys that, like, if I had to choose, okay, you're going to have to cut your life short, but you're going to be the greatest bodybuilder on the planet, I would have said, okay, I'll take that. Whereas today, I'm like, damn, I want to live to 70. And I used to think 47 was old as can be, right?
Oh, yeah.
Here and now, and I'm like, man, I don't look so bad for 47, right?
Are you doing all the Botox that Dusty's doing?
I'm doing Botox. I do it all,
That a boy.
Damn,
See, Ron, I'm telling you.
It's not necessarily Botox. It's more like some filler and stuff. You start to lose a little bit here,
You go in and you let professionals work on this.
But, I take good care of my skin, though. I wash my face. And, tanning is like the worst thing for you. So I try to stay out of the sun now more. And Dusty's in a hotter place than I am,
Yeah, yeah. It's I laughed when you said that about the bikes. I'm like, yeah, no, there's no. I see people on motorcycles. I'm like, you're riding in an oven.
Yeah.
It's not enjoyable.
Yeah.
And everyone's on their cell phone driving, so you're gonna die. Like, I don't see it.
And you have a short window where it's like, okay, the fall's amazing, but then it gets cold. Like, it gets really windy, the desert breeze.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's like I got to figure out, okay, if I want to ride and maybe take trips to California, whatever else,
Yep.
Well, Jay, we've had you for 90 minutes, man. You've been an extremely generous guest. Thank you very much for your time. You really, we've been on for a year now, and we can't think of a better way to start the second round than with Jay Cutler. What do you have? You don't seem like the type of guy that doesn't have a plan. What would your plan for the next couple of years be for yourself?
I'm working on the nutrition line pretty steadily now. Cutler Nutrition, I've taken that thing to a different level now, with more direct to consumer and Amazon based, more interactive. I have the Cutler Club, which is my membership club. So I'm doing live feeds every week with my fans all around the world, and just trying to give more information out there. And I'm still putting out content, as you guys know, with JTV, trying to give these guys a platform that might not be visible on their own platforms. I hope to build the next superstars in the future that I think they're going to be more social media than necessarily bodybuilding, because unless a Phil Heath comes along, that's just a genetic freak, which there's some guys out there, I'm sure. But I just think that the bodybuilders can't necessarily just get paid to stay home anymore. You know, being linked to supplement companies, like, the free paychecks are over, right? You don't know where expos are going. So social media has to be so consistent now. And I think that's the biggest challenge for me at my age is how do I want to put out content and be perceived by everyone other than, hey, I'm just a guy that's living, the dream of retirement. But I'm still going to do my best to give back. I promote 4 contests that hold the Jay Cutler name. I'm going to get back to traveling once I'm able to do so. I was planning to go to FIBO in October. They canceled the fans. I'm actually going to do something viral. We're going to do something on a live feed. But we'll get back to these trips next year. I hope the expos start taking off again. And, I keep training. I want to keep training, man. I want to be the best. I want to be like Mike O'Hearn at 52 or whatever. I
know. That's my goal too. I'll be 45 in October. And I'm like, man, I just want to keep looking and feeling awesome and being able to do what I want in the gym,
Yeah.
And I got to tell, before you go, one of my favorite quotes of yours that you ever said to me, which just summed you up, always trying to find a way to win. But it was in 2013, which was your final comeback show. Remember, you did the 2013 show for the fans. And you did guest posing in Calgary, and I put your tan on for you. And I asked you, I said, so, because you'd play sixth that year, right? You'd been out of the mix and you were sixth, and I said, so how do you feel about everything? And you said, well, I knew I wasn't going to win, but I knew I was going to sell more shirts than Phil.
Yeah.
And I just thought, there it is. It's always a win.
I'll be honest, guys, like 13 might have been probably one of my favorite Olympias ever because the pressure wasn't there. It was pretty hyped for me coming back that year.
Oh, I had the 5 shirt with the 5 on it.
Yeah, and for a minute I thought I was going to win, to be honest. I thought I could win it probably halfway through the prep. But I tore the other bicep. I tore this one in 11.
Yeah.
I had the recovery in 12. I had the surgery. But then when I started training, literally the first day I said, okay, I'm going to commit to this. And I was doing chest and I picked the dumbbell from the rack and I tore my lower bicep in my right arm. And I said, oh, man, I can't extend this another year. I'm going to be older. I just turned 40 as I was leading into that show. So I was 39 and I thought, man, I can't go past 40. And I ended up competing, and it definitely hindered my back training. I couldn't row with the reverse grip and the things I needed to do. That's the thing. I built the body on heavy weights, especially for the back. If you guys go and watch my videos in the volume, I couldn't train like that in 13, and it really affected my back and leg size where I wasn't as good. Once I pulled down, I realized that I was a shadow of what I used to be. And being a beast is what won me shows, man. I out-muscle guys. I was never pretty to look at. I didn't have the smallest waist. I had a great set of abs, but I had really, I had bigger obliques. But I was able to get enough condition, not always the best condition guy, but just enough to be able to be, I feel, better than a lot of guys. And that's where my career ended, 13. I never planned to compete after that. So there's been a lot of hype still to this day. People still hit me on media I saw this Nick Strength and Power was posting, oh, Jay may be coming back. And, of course, everyone's hitting me up. And I'm like, come on, man, I'm 47 years old.
I'm busy counting money.
That's why I give Dexter so much credit for him to have the mentality to still go in the gym and train and, be able to wake up every day and say, I'm a pro bodybuilder still trying to win the Mr. Olympia. I can't even imagine what his mindset must be like. Because, listen, I appreciate a bodybuilder's mindset, not their physiques. And I'm sure both you guys, like Dusty said, I could care less about what you do in the gym. It's really, he's talking about the mindset, because what you do outside the gym that creates the person that can go and train and have the ability to balance and live real life, right? And be successful. So I love being successful. I love being a positive thing for people, especially during these times. And I'm going to continue to do that. So I'll keep on the media. I'll keep posting what I can. And, I'm so excited that you guys chose me to be on your podcast. And thanks for reaching out to me. And I hope I run into you guys very, very soon.
Yeah, we missed the German airport chats and the British airport chats and the Australian airport chats.
So Dusty, what's next for you?
Right now, I mean, I did a little year of kind of figuring it out. And for me now, it's all about social media and marketing. That's all. Shows, when I compete, I'm going to compete maybe next year, but it's purely to drive the media.
Okay.
I fortunately, a long time ago, I knew my role in the industry, and the world rolled in my favor. Had I been in the sport 10 years earlier, I would have never went anywhere, because if you weren't winning, you didn't matter. Because of this stuff now, it's
First glitch of Dusty's show.
It just, what's that?
Your face froze there for the first time the whole show.
Well, it was my best look.
That's okay. No one really needs to see your face, Dusty.
Exactly. So, but yeah, that's the plan, is just creating ways to put out more content. I mean, because like you said, that is the magic for us, and it's exciting how many people have come along and they don't care. I mean, you really realize now that there's a certain level of people that need the bodybuilders that are winning shows, and certain people that just want something to follow.
Real people. Yeah.
Yep.
And Ron, you've hung it up.
Yeah, well, I wake up every morning, Jay, amazed that I make a living from bodybuilding, because I come from the 90s when, like Dusty said, you know, you had to be top 10 guy in the world to make a living. And the fact that I, you know, get up in the morning and do my podcast and talk to Mr. Olympia, and then I got clients messaging me, I'm helping them out. I love helping people. And because of this podcast and who I associate with, I tend to attract hardcore clients that know how to get it done, and it's a lot of fun. And then obviously, you know, one of the owners at the gym up here that we have to have you up to the gym, and as soon as Americans are allowed in Canada again.
Exactly.
The dirty Yanks. And you know, just I love walking into that gym every day and knowing that that's the type of gym that someone could become Jay Cutler in.
Now, someone who came out and trained there recently, Bumstead, or?
Yeah, Bumstead loves it out here, and he loves to come and train here.
Okay.
And it's the type of gym where someone could get ready for an Olympia, you know. I mean, Dusty will tell you, and there's not a lot of them now anymore, and I'm just real proud to be part of it.
Yeah, your buddy in Marietta talks about you all the time, you know.
But yeah, and I love that you support his gym. He's such a good guy, such a great guy, and what he's doing there, I just love that gym. Dusty and I both love that gym.
Yep.
Metroflex Marietta.
Yeah, he's such a good guy, Ryan, and I mean, I love going out there to train, so
yeah.
we're trying to give him. I know he's going through some now, but I think he's now the outdoors next week or this week or something.
Yeah, we kind of had it easy. We opened on May 19th, and the government hasn't bothered us at all since. So we're just kind of keeping our fingers crossed on a daily.
Well, let's keep doing it, man. Let's stay positive, and hopefully I can come back on in the next year and maybe have some more news or whatever else. I'd love to.
Yeah.
Again, you know.
We'd love it. Thanks a lot, Jay.
Thanks, Jay.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you next time. I still got
There you go. You still got it. The king. So, Dusty, we finally got him on the show.
The undoable, the guy that we thought might be one of our first. He wanted to be first in the following year, and that's where you were confused.
It's so funny. He got my hopes up. He comments on the photo. When am I on, bro? First guy to comment back when we first posted. So I thought, oh my God, we're gonna have Jay like episode 3.
I'm gonna be honest though, like we haven't regressed much, so I'm okay. I don't know if we got any better, but
probably good. We got some practice ones.
You know, I mean, I was on time this time. I got a fresh shower. I mean, so I feel good about that.
I didn't need to take a leak halfway through. Yeah. You know, so
he messed up the point where we had to step away, which no one's gonna know about, but gave me a chance to give the dogs bones, so they were going crazy. But no, it was awesome, and I like that. You know, I was giving you a hard time before that we just wing it. Like, I feel like that's what I love about the show, is just let it go where it goes. And especially because Jay has done a couple podcasts recently, and that was the only thing, because, you know, I don't really watch other podcasts. I was like, well, shit, I don't want to cover the same stuff. And I'm pretty confident we didn't, since I don't watch them.
No, I did briefly look at a couple of his other interviews that had timestamps.
Oh, okay, cool.
And I just read the timestamps. I was like, okay, yeah, fair enough. Okay. And then there was like, you know, just by default, at least half of the timestamps, I was like, oh, well, I wasn't going to ask him about that stuff anyways. And then a few of them, I was like, oh, good to know he talked about that. I might go like around the corner on that one and see what he says about that, you know. So I might have got a few ideas, but yeah, he's just so easy to talk to. I mean, you know, I joked about the airport conversations, but you know, I remember the last time I think I talked to Jay was on a flight from Germany back to London.
Yeah, I was there.
And he was sitting one row ahead of me on the aisle.
On the other side, yeah.
And I was on the aisle. And he spent the whole flight, like 2-hour flight, he was turned around. And the whole time he's talking to me, like we talked for 2 hours straight, the whole time he's talking to me, I'm going, his neck's going to hurt.
He shouldn't be doing this. Like,
you know, because I felt bad because I'm sitting there staring forward. I'm not going to be. Yeah, he's sitting all crooked, talking the whole time, and he just it was funny. We had a great conversation, but he's the type of guy that, you know, like you said, he goes around, says hi to everybody, acknowledges everyone in the room. You know, likes to kind of set the tone for the room and make everybody comfortable. And, you know, he's that way when you see him in public too.
I remember it's funny because a lot of people don't understand, like, there's a lot of big stars in bodybuilding, in the industry in general. I shouldn't say bodybuilding, in the industry. But I remember one year I was in Germany, and I had my back to the entrance of the cafeteria, 20% off, Dusty20, IamEaton.com. But it was funny because I noticed I was looking away, and everyone kind of stood up. And the guy who was sitting across from me goes, "What's going on?" And I said, "Oh, Jay must be here."
That's
and
funny.
he smiled, and he goes, "What?" And I go, "Jay has to be here." And literally he looks, he goes, "Yeah."
Jay's here.
Because, and you're talking about all the other stars as well. Just that is the respect that he's earned.
Yeah.
And that he gives. And I think that's why, because, you know, literally, and it is comical. I mean, I like to joke and stuff, but I'm also semi-serious. Like, you know, in the realm of he's Mr. Olympia, and I've bought tickets for the Olympia, is about as close as I'm ever going to get to that stage with something like that. He had supported my career since I was an amateur.
Yeah.
Checking in on things and stuff. And it's like, it's not even like a friend of a friend thing. That's Jay. That's what he's done for a lot of people. I know the same story with you.
Well,
like,
I
wow.
noticed he did it during the podcast several times. Like, oh, damn. There you go. That's why Dusty's spending $7,000 on dog school, right there. $7,000 so that he doesn't have to hit that mute button. Very expensive mute button. Oh yeah, see now he's having a discussion with them. There we go. Up. That, see? It's telling him how it's going to be. You're going to get a left, and then you're going to get a right, and then you're going to get a left, and then you're going to get a right. Yeah, there you go.
Dude, this is terrible. So I have a neighbor, and I love him, Russ, who has a Yorkie, but he's an old dude who knows that I'm at home all the time. So he'll come out back and stand there, and the dogs know he's there.
He's like looking to see if you're around, so you can have a neighbor chat.
So I'll let the dogs out, but he'll stand there while the dog, and I'm like, he knows I'm here. My car's right out front, and I'm like,
he doesn't know you're recording a world famous podcast.
I'm not required to answer. Just like when someone knocks on my door, I don't always answer.
It didn't
I'm
invite
not required to answer.
I'm not required to answer my phone if it rings.
No. So yeah. Anyways,
you're not. Why would you call me? I'm sorry. I'm just thinking out loud.
What are you doing? I get confused when it rings.
This is a text device.
Shit. Why is this email broken?
but Jay does what you were saying. He even did it during the podcast. Like, he goes out of his way to give other people credit.
He's like, with our career, and I want to go, there's nothing about my career that looks like your career.
Yeah, but it's just how but it's genuine. That's how he sees things. Mm-hmm. He's not putting on like, okay, I'm going to put on my nice guy character and say nice things about people. It's just not how it is, because that's just how he is, because, you know, we've been around him enough to know.
Yep.
And, you know, it's humbling because it's a hard act to follow. And I'm not talking about the wins.
Yeah, no, I agree.
The way he carries himself and, you know, deals with fans. And so it's a hard act for anyone to follow, but it raises the bar and it raises the standard for everyone involved in the industry, you know?
I find it interesting, too, because a lot of questions, which I knew I didn't have time to get to some of them, were about how to become someone, how to build something. And you know what, man? If I was going to give advice, like the most loose advice, it would be, number one, outwork everyone. And number two is, like, be a good person. Literally, it's that simple in our industry, because it is a small bubble and it just continues to go on. I mean, if you follow a guy like Jay and look and go, why is he who he is versus everyone else? I mean, he openly admits, and he's right. I mean, you know, he's not the best Mr. Olympia ever.
Right.
But I can't name anything else that's bigger in the industry.
Yeah, it's you know, he was ahead of the curve too, like I was saying, ahead of the curve on the engagement, ahead of the curve on returning the emails, ahead of the curve on staying at the expos. You know, and not like he foresaw what it was going to add up to, but I think a lot of people they forget about the little people before they're even big people.
That's actually a really valid point. And like, or the importance, like, how many guys do you know, or girls, that are getting ready for a show, and maybe they've come and work our booth or something, and the whole world needs to stop around their prep. Well, I gotta go. I gotta do this. And they're in a hurry, and they're short with people, and
they're
all
late.
of these things. Well, this guy's winning the Olympia tomorrow.
And he's staying until midnight to see the last fan.
Every fan.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny? Every fan would understand if he left.
Yeah, that's the thing. He didn't have to stay. People would have just been like, "Oh, I got close to Jay," and then at 9:30 he closed up and left. Yeah, everyone would understand.
Yeah, it's not crazy. And then the next day he blew everybody away, and yeah, that's why we're his fan. And I think that that's something that people don't see is, you know, he's just a worker. And I didn't get to ask because I didn't want to go very on, but because I also know the answer is Jay Cutler's not a guy that retires from.
Yeah. He doesn't know how to just sit around and do nothing. That's impossible. Like he says, you know, he doesn't even turn the TV on much, and he doesn't have to do anything. He's working
his face off, and he needs to do nothing.
Yeah. Well, that's my plan for the rest of the day, Dusty. Is actually nothing.
That's awesome. I have a big week, dude.
I'm actually just kidding.
I have 5 days before these two are gone. No, my many things are hanging out with the dogs. This is the home stretch. This is it. Todd comes in on Friday to film. I take him on Saturday, and we got some cool stuff going too at Canine Games. Nice. I'm doing a bite suit. I'm gonna get mauled by dogs.
Nice. You deserve it.
Yeah, I think some of my exes are coming to release them.
Release the hounds.
I was like, whoa, why is she here? Fuck this.
You get to do like, is there like a scene where you get to like try to make it across the yard of a mansion before they get you, or do they play it out a little bit?
Because I was literally asking, I was like, can I run away? And he's like, we're gonna work our way up to that. So maybe, so apparently, like I'm getting my ass kicked too bad in the beginning because I didn't get a yes. They were like, we'll have some fun with it. I'm like, that's a no. You're not gonna let me get my ass kicked so bad. So I'm hoping. I guess there's actually a way to do it correctly. So I'm hoping before they're gone, I can get really mauled by a dog.
Well, I'm checking the tracking numbers of that package I'm waiting for to complete my midlife crisis bike build.
You should be very happy, by the way, that you chose a bicycle and not a vehicle, just so you know.
Yes, and it says that it's being delivered today. So I'm just kind of waiting.
If that thing better be done by next week, or you and I got problems. I want to see it on the show.
That's how I feel.
I want to see it on the show. Maybe a released photo after the show. I want to see it before the internet sees it. Don't be fucking me on this deal.
No. Okay, don't worry about it. Well, that's my plan for today. And, of course, Chest Day, Best Day. International Chest Day Monday. Going to go in. I had a few days of training over the weekend. I went and saw my dad, 81 years old. I got across on the ferry to Vancouver Island, where they only have, like, one active COVID case, I think. And I went and safely visited my 81-year-old father, with no social distancing, and we watched some TV and talked about World War II movies, and just like it was Christmas.
Nice.
So we had a good time, and I'm happy to have got that. I know a lot of people didn't get to visit their family. I haven't seen them since December, you know. So I know not everyone has gotten to visit their family yet. So it was really great. Emily and I had a good time on the island, where everything moves a little bit slower.
I've been, but you know what though? I can handle that. I do those trips away where I'm like, where you're like, I could live like this, and about 2 days later, like, I gotta get home.
I got shit to do. Yeah, I know. It's like we're sitting on the beach watching the sunset.
Yeah, that was awesome for a day. Oh. Third day, you'd have been like, what's happening?
Yeah. I'm not busy enough. Okay, man. Well, I'm just waiting to hear that there's some nightmare with the recording and Scott lost it all. And
it's not going to happen unless the only way that happens is if you don't remind people they need to like, subscribe,
share. Yes.
Comment.
Like, share, subscribe, and comment. Please. Desperately. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Tell your friends. Tell your enemies.
Tell everybody.
Tell everybody. Okay, Dusty. Have a good week, my buddy. Episode 53. Episode 54 coming up.
That's right. In the books, man.
Okay.
Till next time.
It's just bodybuilding.